Welcome to Trinity Park Youth. We are glad that you are here with us tonight. As always, make sure you are logged in so you can participate in the live chat, and we look forward to that every single week. As always, the first important thing that we want to think about is that we do have our Zoom meeting right after this at 9 o'clock, so we can see each other face to face, have some good conversations, play a game, pray together, share what's going on in each other's lives in a more personal way as well. All right, and then also you will see that we do have the 2020 Youth Mix out. Every year we put out a mix for when we're going on mission trips, when we're in our vans, just to remind you of the good music that is out there that can be good for your soul. We try to make sure that this mix every year is diverse. So that means diverse in genres, all right? So there'll be some songs that are right up the style that you like, and then there'll be some also that maybe are new or unfamiliar types of genres. So there'll be some rock, there'll be some hip hop, so there'll be some worship music. Find some songs you like, listen to them all, get used to them, save the ones you do like, whatever works best for you. We want to find music that can speak to your soul. So check that out. The link will be right below this video. And we'll send it out to you in text as well, hopefully. Opportunity just to connect and find some new music. So remember that music matters, what you listen to matters, and it can either help you or it can send you down on the wrong path. So as we think about that, we're going to play a little game today, all right, called Biblical King or Prescription Drug, all right? I'm going to give you a name. It's going to be old school, and you're not going to know this name probably, and you got to decide if it's a biblical king or a prescription drug, all right? So the first one is Jakafi. Is that an FDA-approved drug to help with bone marrow cancer, or was he the king of Persia, most renowned for pushing back the invasion of the Babylonians? Ooh, man, it's a tricky one. You think you guys can figure this one out? And of course, it is an FDA-approved drug. Obviously, the Babylonians weren't even around by 42 BC. That empire had been long gone, right? So we know that. Obviously, that was the easy one, right? Give you the easy one. So, next one. Obviously, in the live chat, you just can write drug or biblical king, or just king. King or drug is what you can type. And this is Rehoboam. All right, is it a FDA-approved drug for childhood asthma and other breathing issues? Or was it the king of Judah, some 900 BC? He almost went to war with Israel. Which one do you think this one is? Drug or king? Ooh, Rehoboam. All right, it of course is the king of Judah. Obviously, you guys knew that, right? You guys have been reading all your ancient literature and Old Testament stories. You know the king of Judah, of course, one of those guys, right? And the next one, Cambyses, all right? A drug used to put patients into a deep sleep for 20 plus hours if they have really long surgeries. Or another king, maybe from the Persian Empire around 500 BC. He was the first king of the combined Persian Babylonian Empire. Ooh, man, what do you think? Drug or king? Oh, it was a king, of course, when the Persians and the Babylonians finally started to get along. Well, they didn't really get along, one took over the other, but it was combined in a nice, friendly, not so friendly way, right? Biblical kings. How about Rauval, all right? Is this for treating schizophrenia and not approved in Canada? Or was it the last king of Judah whose reign ended with the reconciliation of Israel in 586 BC? All right, I think you guys will get this one. You know, of course, you know this one. I believe in you, right? Is Israel reconciled in 586 BC, or is it totally not reconciled, huh? Yeah, that's right. Boom, treating schizophrenia, all right? Israel actually got torn apart in 586 BC, so maybe you knew that already. How about Labashi, all right? An FDA-approved drug for parasitic infections. That sounds extremely gross, right? Especially in toes and fingers, yuck. Or was it the king of Babylon for just 9 months, and he was assassinated and replaced by Nabonidus, all right? 586, right in that important time frame. Let's see if you guys can figure this one out. Oh, the king of Babylon, but not for very long, right? Not for very long at all. And we have Calderol, all right? Is this used for treating genetic vitamin D deficiencies in teenagers and adults? Or is it the Emperor of Rome, infamous for his continued religious persecution of the church in Corinth, all right? Which would be the Corinthians, you know. Which one do you think it is? Boom, vitamin D deficiencies. Make sure you get your orange juice so you don't have to have some Calderol in your diet and take that drug. And we have Vespia. Is this a mild sedative for nervous patients, especially when you travel on the planes? Or is it the Emperor of Rome during the first Jewish-Roman War? 70 AD is when the temple in Jerusalem is destroyed another time. Common theme for Jerusalem, right? And it is, boom, Vespia, the Emperor of Rome. Obviously, you definitely got that one. You definitely typed in king for that. You guys are dominating this. So, as we move on, last week we talked about there can be pain. There can be pain in your life, but we need to make sure that there is a purpose that comes from that. And pain can prepare us, and pain can strengthen our faith. And we talked about the fact that Peter had pain in his life. And Jesus even said that Satan was going to sift him like wheat. But then, when he returned to his faith, that he could be used to strengthen his brothers. And that's exactly what he does at Pentecost with the coming where we celebrate the Holy Spirit's work in our lives, and how 3,000 people were added to the church that day. 3,000 people placed their faith in Jesus that day. And so God used him and that pain to strengthen him. When we talked about tests and how we make sure that those things help prepare us and make us stronger. And so today we're going to move on. And the question is, before we get started, as we talk about purpose, is what do you think the purpose is of this tool? All right, this is a real tool. You can buy this on Amazon. That's where I found it. So what do you think this actually does, man? If you get this, I'm going to be so impressed with you if you can figure out what this thing is. What do you think the purpose is of this tool? Man, what is that? What is that? It, of course, it belongs in the kitchen, and obviously it is a delicious microwave s'mores maker, all right? You don't want your graham crackers to fall off, so these keep them in place. And you fill that with water, and the steam helps the chocolate from getting burnt. That's what Amazon says. That's what the description says. And so it is a microwave s'mores maker. If you have a gas grill or gas stove like me, I just do it right over that and roast those marshmallows right like that. But maybe somebody buys this. It's like $25 on Amazon, so I'm not buying it. But that is a microwave s'mores maker, all right? I'm kind of craving some microwave s'mores now, or real s'mores. Probably I'm craving more than microwave. So today we're going to talk about, if you don't know something's purpose, you will probably misuse it. Because if you got that microwave s'mores maker in the mail today and it didn't have a package or instructions, you'd be like, what am I going to use this for? And when we don't know the purpose of something, that is when we struggle to make sure that we understand how to use it correctly. So, have you ever, for our first live chat, have you ever tried to use something without knowing what it was or how to use it? And how did that work out? In other words, maybe you had a tool and you did not know the purpose of that tool, or you go in the kitchen and there's all kinds of different cutters for a pineapple cutter, an apple cutter, all kinds of different things. You just did not know how to use it. You know, when I was, the first time I ever went go-karting, I was only like 8 years old and with my brother. And I knew what the gas pedal was for, and I didn't really think I needed the brake pedal, and I actually crashed and I broke the go-kart. I didn't understand the purpose or the need for that other brake pedal. I thought if I just turned fast enough, I wouldn't ever need to brake. But there was a wall that convinced me otherwise. So what do you think is, or have you ever thought of something that you did not understand how to use? You tried to use it the wrong way, man. Maybe you have something really good for this. Maybe this is a tough one for you to think about. But move to the second one. What do you think is the purpose of school? The purpose of school, e-learning, man. We're only, 2.5 weeks away from the end of e-learning, the end of your school year. What do you think the purpose of school is? All right, I always like to say it's kind of, the purpose of school is to learn how to learn, right? To learn, to be creative, to be equipped, to understand what's going on, to open your mind, not to just be force-fed information, but to learn and think through things and prepare yourself for adulthood. Hopefully you guys are thinking about that, but go ahead and think about it. What do you think is the purpose of school? And our next live chat, as a teen, what do you think is your purpose? All right, teenagers, kids, they always say maybe there's a saying you're familiar with, that youth is wasted on the young because you don't understand everything in life when you're young. I certainly didn't and still don't. But what do you think is the purpose for a teenager? Is it just to have fun? Is it to kind of enjoy life? To have some safe boundaries where you can take risks but not be completely responsible for everything, so you can kind of grow incrementally and slowly grow in your independence? Is it just to have a good time and eat junk food because your body doesn't care when it's young? You can eat anything probably and no problems. What do you think is purpose? So today we're actually going to go backwards, though. We're going to go backwards in time. We're going to start at the end of David's life. King David that we know as King David, that we know is David and Goliath, that we know as Psalm 23 David, the Lord is my shepherd David. And we have in Acts 13, it talks about David, and it said, when David had served God's purpose. This is the end note of David's life, referenced by Luke in Acts. And it says when he had served God's purpose in his own generation, and that time he fell asleep. In other words, he died. And he was buried with his ancestors, and his body decayed. Kind of gross, but just letting you know that David did die. And so this is just kind of showing that David had served God's purpose. Well, what was David's purpose? In Psalm 57, he talks about, David writes this psalm, he wrote a lot of the psalms. He says, I cry out to God Most High, to God who will fulfill his purpose for me. Not my purpose for me, but his purpose for me. And he says that while being chased by King Saul, who King Saul did not really like him because David became more and more popular with his military victories, and he wasn't Saul's son, so he was actually going to be destined to take over the throne and not King Saul's son Jonathan. And during all this crazy chaos, David is still saying, what is God's purpose for me? And so read it with me today, that my purpose is not for me. My purpose is God's purpose. That God has a specific purpose for you today. All right? And so we're looking at him again in David's words in Psalm 78. He said, he being God, chose his servant David, calling him from the sheep pens, all right? David was a shepherd. He was the youngest of all the sons, and he took David from tending the ewes and the lambs and made him the shepherd of Jacob's descendants, God's own people, Israel. In other words, he becomes a protector, from a protector of sheep to protector of people, from a shepherd of animals to a shepherd of an entire nation he is entrusted with. David was the youngest son, all right? He was not the big man on campus. He was not a popular guy. He was forgot about. When they come to crown the new king, he's still out there, and all the other sons are lined up, and when Samuel's looking to appoint someone to be the next king, he's waiting for God's confirmation. He runs out of sons to look through and finds out that there's one more son, and that son is out taking care of the sheep. And the shepherd was a low rank. He was trusted with it because he was the little man on the totem pole. And so when he goes and he meets Goliath, he's actually just he's bringing lunch to his brothers, all right? He's packed lunches for them. He's not allowed to be a soldier. And so he's bringing lunch for his soldier brothers. And those are all the things he's doing that doesn't seem very amazing, don't seem very great, doesn't seem like a giant, huge, amazing purpose in his life, because he was just the young guy on the block. David, of course, right here in all these ways that he was serving, was not looking to make his name known. He was serving God for God's name to be known. It wasn't looking for his glory. When you're a shepherd, when you're bringing lunch to your brothers, you're not doing it so you can get a bunch of applause and a bunch of confirmation and a bunch of fulfillment. You're doing it because you're serving the purpose that you believe that God has for you in that very moment. All right? So our mission is real simple. If you want to serve God's purpose, start serving God's people. All right? How can we make sure that we are serving God's people? And so we know that serving is so huge because even Jesus modeled that for us. And we have Mark's words in chapter 10 of his gospel. It says, even the Son of Man, even Jesus himself, did not come to be served, even though he is the King of Kings and we worship him, but he came to serve and he came to give. He came to give his life as a ransom, as a payment for many, for all people who trust in him. And so Jesus models the fact that we are called to serve, we are called to bless others, and it is not about our own purpose, but it is about God's purpose. And so I love this quote here from Mark Batterson. He's a writer. He's wrote a lot of books, and sometimes people come up to him and they're like, well, should I write a book? How do I write a book? How do I make money? How do I get lots of people to read my book? And he flips the script completely on that when he talks about purpose and serving. And he says this about it. He says, this is a paraphrase because I've heard him say it. I couldn't find the exact quote, but this is pretty much what he says. He says, if God calls you to write a book, then write it. Don't worry if it will be published. Don't worry if it will sell millions. Just do it out of obedience. Serve God and see how it changes you and how it changes others. How it changes you and how it changes others. All right? So we don't write a book for our fame. We do it out of obedience. So if God calls you to do something, you don't think about what am I getting out of it. You just stay obedient, you stay loyal, and you serve God and you serve others in that moment. All right? It sounds so simple, but it can be so difficult to do. And Mark just wanted to remind people that, if you think you're supposed to write a book, then God's going to work and God's going to speak into you while you're writing that book. And maybe even if you're the only person that ever reads the book that you write, if you're the one person who ever sees the art that you create, maybe God is still trying to serve and trying to work in you by you serving him faithfully. And maybe there'll be people who will be impacted by it as well. So, talking about where we are right now, man, how are people serving others? People are making masks. We have some amazing people in our church who have been making masks for healthcare workers or just for other people who, when they're out in public. We have people praying all the time. We have the prayer spots at the Hancock Regional Hospital. If you have not gone to the Hancock Regional Hospital closest to the stoplight, there are several marked spots there that are prayer spots to pray for the healthcare workers, to pray for those who are sick, to pray for our country, to pray for wisdom, all those things. So I've taken my family there. We've prayed there. Ask your parents to take you there and spend some time in prayer. All right? You can donate meals to healthcare workers. I know some of you have done that with your families. You can write thank you notes, write thank you videos. Those are all over being spread. You can care for your neighbors if they need help, if they've needed food or taking care of something around the house that they've needed or outdoor stuff. You can help care for your neighbors. Trinity Park kids have been coloring pictures and they're being sent out to different elderly people just to encourage them to spread a little love and kindness to make sure that they are not forgotten. You think about nursing homes on lockdown and people at home alone that don't have much interaction. So they've been trying to do that in the way they can. And of course, we talk about it every week, right? Serve your family. I should have put that one in yellow. Serve your family. So many ways you can be helping your parents. I know a lot of things going on in your life. Maybe you're feeling overwhelmed with school in the future, but you can find ways to serve your family. You can help your mom, you can help your dad, you can help your siblings. Serve your family. Just think about how can I help them in this moment. If you don't know a way to help, then all you got to do is ask. Say, Mom, Dad, how can I help? Is there something I can do to help everything that's going on right now and what we need to get done? So think about that. Serve your family, okay? And going back to Acts 13, it said God raised up David to be their king, the king of Israel, of whom he testified and said, I have found in David, the son of Jesse, a man after my heart, who will do all my will. And if there's one thing that David is famously quoted it as, is that he is a man after God's own heart. In other words, he's trying to follow what God has for him and God has for his life. He's not worried about his own heart, but he's a man after God's own heart. And so that is a compliment that I would want to be said to me, and I hope that you would want to be said about you, that you are not chasing your own ambitions, but you're chasing what God has for you, that you are after God's heart, all right? So ask God how he might want you to serve others this week, and then follow his lead. That's real simple. How can I serve someone else? Pray about it, think about it, spend time thinking how I can make an impact in other people's lives. So as we get ready to go to Zoom in a few minutes, these are the questions we're going to talk about. And if these are typical for us, then maybe we'll spend some time in the next couple weeks giving you guys some gifts inventories to figure out and remind yourself what you're good at, what you're skilled at, how you help others. Are you a good listener? Are you wise? Are you someone who's always good with their hands and always being there to help someone? What is a gift that you have? Are you really thoughtful? Are you creative? Or are you just like the muscle person who always helps doing other things? So we're going to discuss how has God gifted you and how could you serve others with those gifts? And what are some ways God might be calling you to serve others during this time where we're still practicing some level of social distancing and everything's just a little bit different? So as we think about that, those are the things we're going to talk about. I will see you guys soon, and let's go ahead and close in prayer before we head to Zoom. God, we thank you that you are a God that has a will for us and a specific purpose. And every day we can follow your purpose by serving you, by seeking your heart, by loving our neighbors and caring about others around us, because we know that you came to serve and that you came to rescue us and help us to be people who search for your will and your purpose in our lives. And we thank you that you are here with us tonight, that you are always with us, that we can gather, that we have your word, that we can pray together, that we can worship you at all times. And we thank you, Lord, that you are a good God and a God of unfailing love. Amen. We'll see you guys soon at the Zoom. Take care.